Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this panel discussion. So right now, if I could get the participants for the panel, if y'all could all just introduce yourselves for us.
Hi, my name is Marcus McWhorter. I am currently serving as Department Chair of Drama at Austin Community College, working from home.
Hi, I'm Laura Neal. My pronouns are she, her. I teach playwriting and theater appreciation at ACC. I am here as the dramaturg guide / playwriting coach for the audio drama series.
Good morning, I'm Maggie Gallant. I'm a playwright. I was one of the participants in Laura's class and one of the writers for the series.
Good evening. This is Carlos Charles. I'm an audio engineer, audio production specialist. Nice to meet you guys.
Hi, I'm Pablo Munoz-Evers. I wrote one of the episodes for this, and I was also in Laura Neal's class in the summer and the spring of this year.
Perfect. Okay, so we're talking about what you all have been working on this semester at ACC and the Drama Department and the Creative Writing Department. So my first question is, who had the idea, especially during this pandemic, to look at like radio drama as a form, as a dramatic form, instead of embracing the new like Zoom virtual theater?
Yeah, so this one is all Marcus. Everyone give Marcus a round of applause for having this brilliant idea. Marcus knew that I had been teaching playwriting, that I was interested in teaching all different kinds of playwriting, and so he called me up and he said, Laura, why don't we do some radio drama? Can you have your students write some radio drama, some audio drama? And I said, yes, that would make 2020 better. So we were off. So hats off to Marcus for that idea.
To be sure, it was, when I asked Laura, it was an absolutely half-baked idea. It was just, that would be interesting. I don't know how it's going to go. So props to Laura and the class for actually fleshing it out and making it a real thing. So it was definitely collaborative.
So in time, because I'm curious about the time, like Marcus, what point in the pandemic was this, that this idea came, like?
This was,
do you remember?
Laura, maybe like June? Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. The class started in July, so it had to be sometime before July that we came up with the idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm really interested. Like, I love how like art has just become like the one thing that's getting us through this entire experience, right? In one way or the other, whether you're reading, it's the music, we're all engaging in these ways. And so I love, that we see artists in action responding to the moment and finding ways to do the work. So have y'all always collaborated, or was this specific to this moment?
This was kind of this moment. We both teach in the department. Laura's teaching in two departments, creative writing and drama. But we hadn't worked on a creative project together before. Well, that trend is over because we'll continue to collaborate. Laura's a fantastic collaborator, as is everybody else here on this panel. So y'all ain't getting rid of me yet.
It seems like such a natural thing, like that the actors and performers have to engage with or get an opportunity to engage with the playwrights and vice versa and the writers. So it seems, it sounds very jazzistic. I'm here for it. And I do think it is where we're gonna have to figure out. So I'm so glad y'all are being the pioneers of that. Laura, what are some of the challenges or like some of the differences between teaching your students how to write for radio versus what they would be producing for stage?
Yeah, for sure. So the good news is that they're both text-based mediums, right? Dialogue is in charge. Words are action in theater. And so the big difference, the key difference, is switching from supplementing that with visuals to supplementing that with sound, and allowing writers to realize how many tools they have at their disposal. So the way I talk about writing, right, is that it's my job to show you a whole bunch of tools, and then you pick the ones you like and you run with it. So for audio drama, we started to think about sound effects. We started to think about, oh, you can have multiple settings, right? You can have a giant monster, quote unquote, on stage, and it's a sound effect, right? It's doable. And so I think shifting that mindset of what can be achieved with the budget that we have, and just allowing the writers' imaginations to run rampant, that has been a challenge, but also the most fun part of this process.
I would also just add, if I may, that I think the other point is that Laura is an excellent instructor in this, and then the tools and the techniques that she gave us, because Pablo and I were both in her spring semester class as well, but the techniques of how to outline a piece, to consider conflict, all of those tools are applicable across any writing medium. So it made it a lot easier to make that transition. It wasn't this very difficult leap from one into another where you're learning a whole new set of techniques. I felt, I don't know, I hope Pablo would agree that, you know, we were so grounded in some of these basics that it made that transition, I think, a lot easier.
Well, this is a question I'm now probably asking, you, Pablo, and Maggie, who are the two playwrights that are on the panel. See, I'm used to like, now, are we podcasting? Are we Zooming? What's happening? Sorry. But for y'all, was there a tool that you kind of stayed away from, or a tool maybe that you didn't really engage with so much traditionally, that this experience kind of gave you space to play with in a different way? I'm just nosy for the playwrights. Did that happen? Spill the tea.
I didn't really take advantage of the possibilities of the medium as much as I could have, I guess I could have like come up with more fantastical or like bigger ideas for it. I kind of just made it a conversation that could work as a stage play. I guess I didn't really think about it very much prior. I was just kind of thinking of it in play form, but there are a lot of things that you can do with audio that you can't do on the stage. So maybe next time.
I think I thought a lot about it because when I was creating the concept for it, I wanted it to be open to any possibility, any style of writing, any genre, to really let the imagination fly. And being British, I've listened to a lot of radio dramas. I mean, it's part of our culture. The Radio 4 dramas were playing in my house, for the whole of my childhood. So I've grown up with those. It's a very natural medium, but I've never had the experience of writing for them before. So, yeah.
I feel like I'm always like, wait, what the English are doing? I'm sorry, Marcus, go ahead.
Well, I think it's, in responding to that question, I think both Maggie's and Pablo's, I think both of them work well on stage, on film, but I think they really just come alive in audio. I mean, it would be quite the production budget to do the chase on stage, right? To have traffic, cars, and a dog. And there's something about Over and Over, Pablo's piece, which airs tomorrow, by the way. There's an intimacy to it and a sweet and sourness that I think really works really well on when it's just audio. And I think Carlos did fantastic work on both, and you can probably speak to some of the production elements, but I think they work really well as audio. Yeah.
And I'm gonna come for you. I got a question for you in a minute, Carlos, but let me go back to my two playwrights before we move, because I'm curious. Because we don't have an end date. We don't know when this particular show is going to close, meaning this pandemic. Is this, I know, Pablo, you said you didn't, is this something you're gonna come back to? Do you feel like this is something that like maybe all playwrights should start playing? Is this like did it feel, is any part of this going to be something you return to as a part of your process in the future?
Yeah, definitely. If I had the opportunity, I would love to come back to it. I think it's a really cool alternative to stage plays, which don't really seem to be a thing right now. And they should come back. It's really cool. I discovered the medium through Laura's class, really. And there's a lot of stuff that people are making in audio that's really good. So yeah, I would love to come back to it.
Yeah, I think the same for me. And I also learned just some new skills and techniques. I mean, trying to write and tell a whole story in 7 minutes was a real challenge, and a really good challenge. And it really focuses you in a way that, you know, a 10-minute piece gives you a lot more freedom. But with the other limitations of not having a lot of those stage theatrics to be able to rely on, and to just know that the listener is there. I mean, it's wonderful from an imagination point of view, but there are limitations and restrictions to it as well. And so from that point of view, I think it's made, hopefully, has made any other form of playwriting better, really, because of what I've learned from having to be so tight. We went back and forth with my piece with Laura, you know, a number of times, and that's one of the great things about Laura, that she never quite lets you off the hook until you really have the piece that it's meant to be and is as good as it could be under the circumstances. So yeah, I think it's a wonderful medium, and I definitely plan to continue writing for it.
I think right now a lot of people are starting to like dabble in all these other mediums. Like we're all getting an opportunity really to kind of cross-pollinate our practices. And I think there are a lot of new writers, or a lot of people that are thinking more about writing, especially for this particular platform. How do we get the work out? So I think it's great, Laura, and I hope, you know, I'm like, y'all better know about Laura Neal in Austin. Just in terms of like, and now you can take classes online, which I think is also a really neat opportunity. And so it is, and it's Carlos. Carlos, I need you to break down for me, because I'm one of them old school theater people. And so explain to me exactly like what is your function in this whole process? Because I know that you're a collaborator, but I'm just like audio. Explain it to me, baby.
So basically, we get all the actors together and they read the script online. Everyone's in different locations and we record it all online. And then once we get the audio, I bring it into my editing platform and I start cutting it up and adding sound effects to make it feel like we're in this, you're there in the place, like a realistic feel as the story is being told, like someone was talking to you. And I think the writers did a great job expressing that, because it felt like a conversation that you can relate to and that you were really in the story. And that makes everything successful. It's like you're watching a movie in your head without the visual, you know. So actually come from a background from video as well. So this was just right up the park for me. And I was like, I could definitely put a sound effect in here. And actually, the writers did an extremely good job putting those indents in the script too. So it was easy to follow, and it's fun. It's fun. It's just learning it and being in the story. So yeah.
So yeah, participant in the story is like you're like a DJ for the sound and the audio, like, right? Is that what I'm hearing? And do you pick out the sounds, or like how does that come up? And I don't know, or anyone, how does that happen? So you're in a process, you get your actors. Who is there a freedom to come up with sound? Like how does that work?
Combination of both. Like I said, the writers have done an excellent job adding elements to the script, but you know, it's always good when you have this family of collaborating, and then the magic happens at that point. You got more heads thinking, and so the writers set the base, and then we just go for it.
So now I want to go to, and thank you for that, because I was like, I know how, like, what a sound designer does. I know that someone's in the booth pushing the button, but again, I'm translating to theater practice. So thank you for breaking that down for me. So how did the concept of using the Congress Bridge come about? Like, who thought about the bridge?
I'll take responsibility for that one. I, all of us in the class had an opportunity to create a concept, and I wanted to showcase Austin, and it was, to some extent, just a thank you back to the city. I've been here 20 years, and I love this city. It feels like home to me, and so I wanted to set the concept somewhere where people could tell these different stories about Austin. And it started out being Congress Avenue, because the number of times I've walked along that street and the changes it's been through. And then we narrowed it down to the bridge. And I'm always fascinated by bridges. I lived in London, and there's so many bridges that go across the Thames, and everyone is slightly different and has a slightly different history. And then I started doing some research about the Congress Avenue Bridge, or the Anne W. Richards Bridge, to give it its correct title. And I just thought about the stories, the people that walked across it, over hundreds of years, the life that's below it, the bats, the kayakers, everything that goes on around this bridge, the way that people cross it, whether they're walking, running, driving, on a scooter. It just seemed to open up all of these possibilities, and yet not restrict the writers to a particular storyline or a particular genre. So I felt I wanted it to be this anchor. The bridge will be an anchor for writers' imaginations that would allow them to fly off to wherever they wanted to go.
And Maggie won the vote. So what happens is that each writer proposes a series concept. We talk about what a series concept is, how it works, and the components, and you create a pitch. And so all of the writers in the summer created pitches, and then we did ranked choice voting, so very extensive, thorough voting process. And Maggie was the victor of that process, and that's logistically how we got to Maggie's concepts. I think it was successful, partially because it's so vivid and specific, and also partially because there's so much space, right? There's room for different genres, different stories, different opportunities. So I remain very grateful for Maggie for bringing that concept to the class.
Yeah, I think probably in a lot of cities across the country, but here in Austin, just this idea of just all the people. So I loved it as a concept. How much research was done about the actual bridge? And did that actually play, and the part that it plays in Austin?
I personally did a lot of research, because I love research for any project. And I go far too deep into it, but there is a great history to the bridge, and the different versions of it that were created, and even the current version now was built, I think, just before 1910. Mm-hmm. And I love thinking about the bridge. If I've talked to Laura about this, I'd love to write a historical perspective of the bridge and tell a story from every decade, because you could go 1920s and the 40s and the 60s and the 80s, and so I'm always fascinated by that. But I liked the concept because we've got writers of different ages and backgrounds in these classes, and not everybody wants to go into deep historical research. So I'm glad that it allowed people to tell current stories or future stories, as well as things from the past.
Pablo, did you fall down a research rabbit hole with this one, or I'm just being nosy because I can. Pablo, did you?
Oh, me. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I probably said it in a really country, very Austin, Texas-y way, and you probably didn't recognize it. So I apologize for that. And am I pronouncing that right? How do you say your name?
Pablo. Yeah, I just didn't hear
Okay.
it.
I just want to make sure, baby. All right.
Okay. Did I fall down a research rabbit hole? Not really. I really like the imagery of it, and like the, just the implication of a bridge. And I've been there many times, so I think like the setting played really nicely with what I wanted the vibe to be of my story. And No, not a lot. Not a lot of research was necessary for me. It wasn't specifically about the bridge, but the bridge played a really nice part in it, in the end result, I thought, for what I wanted. If that makes sense.
No, actually, yeah, it does. Yeah, sometimes that research rabbit hole in writing, sometimes it's convenient, you're escaping, you're going deep, all of the things. So I just was wondering about the process because I know that research is, such a, one way or the other, whether it's because you're breathing in that, you're doing that kind of research. I have a mentor, Lori Carlos, he's talking about just getting in the car. So that's what I was asking about.
Yeah, I will say I probably don't do as much research as maybe I should when I'm writing stuff. I'm not really drawn to doing a lot of research. I like to kind of just make up stuff that I can make up in my head. And maybe I should research my stuff more. I think maybe it would make it more vivid and maybe richer and more realistic.
Well, I like to think that maybe you are doing the thing, but it's more of like what's in your body. Like we all have there's 100 different ways to research. You can be in them streets researching. So I just wanted to, sorry, Florinda's here. So I guess my next question is for Marcus maybe, or whoever else was involved in the casting. How is like the audition and the casting process?
It was different. It was different from anything I've ever done. Though I don't think it's different from what had happened pre-COVID. If you look at even our students who are auditioning for Texas State, UT, they have to do video submissions. So there's that element, but now it's just like everywhere. So auditioning, we made a little Google form to give me your information and then send in an audio of your voice doing like a minute's worth of monologue or whatever. Got all those. And then it was also different because, so there are 12 different pieces in the series. I had 7 in hand, so I knew how to cast those. So then it's a matter of, okay, I've got these auditions here. I've got these roles. Now let's figure out who fits where. Tried to do some callbacks. And typically in callback, we just read, because they're short, we just read through the whole script. It's like, okay, that works. You're good. Let's put you here, put you here. So it was logistically, it was a lot. It was casting 7 different shows, right? And doing it in a matter of a couple of weeks, without seeing anybody, without being able to go down the hall and say, hey, can you come to auditions tomorrow or whatever? So there was a 19th century element to it, almost like we had telegraphs. You send somebody a note and wait 2 or 3 days to get a response. But in the end, we got good casts. And I'm excited because like I said, we had 7 scripts. We had 5 additional coming. We've got a season 2 coming up in the spring. But I've got a bank of auditions now. And each time we do this, we'll just build. And so I'll have a larger and larger pool from which to cast. And then the recording is a whole other. I'll let Carlos tell you how we stumbled on what we use, but that was a whole other, I guess some extra gray hairs just trying to figure out. Like I said, the whole thing was half-baked. I had no idea how we were going to do this, but luckily we had some good collaborators.
Staying in the process, staying fresh. So Carlos, tell me about that. Tell me about the thing that made Marcus chuckle. I want to hear about that. Break it down.
Well, we're recording in different places. So, your goal is to get the cleanest audio possible. So normally you might have some type of audio interface or a microphone, because just recording straight to your computer might not do it, or using your cell phone might not do it. And even in stuff like Zoom, the audio quality might not be there. So we had to find a platform, which we end up using CleanFeed, to record everyone, and it allowed everyone to record at the same time. So we didn't have to wait. It's like, again, you could have a real conversation like you're on the phone, and the quality was still there. And then it actually recorded it in separate tracks. So let's just say if someone had something going on, interference in the background, it won't affect someone else's track. So that helps out so much when it comes to editing. So now I can cut out things that are not supposed to be there. And I can easily add things and stuff like that. If I want an effect over here, it won't affect the whole recording, you know? So it made it easy at that aspect.
Oh, magic, magic, magic. Very different from a theater medium. For just a question that's come, because it's, as a performer, I've done theater and I've done film. I'm a theater baby. I like to rock out, you know, dogs start barking. We got to take a deep breath, find the truth in the moment and make it connect to the work, right? Um, so this translation between what's happening, you know, that process for actors, and I don't know if either one of you can speak to this. I know we don't have one of them on the line, but I'm wondering, just like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, does that mean, like, are we retraining? We don't get that choice anymore. You have to be a film actor or voice actor.
I think it does require, it will require, because like you said, we don't know when this season ends, some different approaches to performance. You know, it's voiceover work, but even voiceover work is still at its core acting. So acting is acting. You got to be able to act. So that's definitely required. Some of the equipment and some of the technical stuff is new, but I think in the end, actors act and they know what to do. I mean, Pablo is not only playwright, he performed in one, so he could probably speak to the performance aspect as well. And we'll soon get Maggie on and cast in something. We're coming for you.
Yeah, it was different, but there was still a lot of the same elements involved. I think a lot less focus on what I looked like and what my body was doing, so I could, you know, focus more on the voice. But there was also the challenge of trying to express certain things just through voice, which was a challenge to figure that out.
Well, I guess the good news is, as artists, we still have more work and exploring to do. Yay, more fun. And so I'm really excited to hear some of the things. And Carlos, before we go too much further, can you please repeat the platform name that you said that you were using? Because I just want to make sure folks get a chance to make note of it.
Okay, yeah, we're not endorsed or affiliated by them, but
because that is the thing. Okay, well then don't do that. No endorsement. Ain't nobody getting you. We didn't secure the bag for that, so don't do that.
It's a good idea, Carlos. We get some sponsorship.
Right. What I do hear you saying is, it's just that you have like these. It's not something that it's hard. It's hella hard to do, and you kind of need some help. So there are platforms that can help people with this. Because I'm like, how are they doing that? But okay, and so research on your own. Never mind, no endorsements.
Yeah, it's the best though. I really enjoyed it. So I recommend it. Yeah, go ahead and use it.
Yeah, well, and I guess that's where who's in the room gets a chance to change, you know, as we continue to develop work. You know, we need people like you to come in and listen to sound in a different way. So thank you for doing what you do. So how are, let's see here, what's my next question that I want to ask? What's the turnaround? What's the, how long does it take you to get a thing to do what it do?
Are we talking about from just the actual audio part or
the audio?
Yeah, so it depends on the script, the length of the script, and how many sound effects are needed. You know, if it's like a busy scene like the chase, you know, where you have cars and a dog running through, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit more challenging. Maybe something like over and over, where it's more intimate. Then you can just, you know, you're relying more so on the actors to express themselves, and then, you know, the background is just very subtle. It supports it, but so that's what it really depends on, you know.
All right. So not anybody. Yeah, you got them skills. Got it. And well, I'm sure we'll all be dabbling and trying to do these things and hitting you up for help. For my playwrights, what was it like hearing your episode completely done for the first time?
I thought it was incredible. I mean, I'm so in awe of what Carlos did, and I told everybody that listened to it that this was not all done in one studio with all of the actors together in the way that people would normally expect these things to be done, you know, standing around each with their own mic. I said, this is all done completely remotely. And when you hear, and this is true of every piece, I mean, it's such beautiful work. I mean, my piece, The Chase, which Pablo was in, I knew it was complicated, and I sort of wanted to send a little note of apology, sorry. And I didn't even expect a lot of these cues and the sounds that I put in there to even be possible. You know, they were my optimal, will be not in this situation. And it just played out exactly as I heard it in my head. And that was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And then to be able to share that work with other people. And that's one of the other wonderful things about this medium, is that it's not just, you know, a piece that's on stage here in Austin that nobody else gets to see. I've sent this to family in England, you know, put it on my social media, and people have listened from all over the place. And that is one of the great sides of this. Yeah, it was and Pablo was excellent, of course, as I knew he'd be.
I haven't. Mine hasn't come out yet, so I haven't heard it. But I love what's being done with the other ones. I think the sound design is amazing, and it just sounds really beautiful. So I'm excited to hear mine.
So the playwrights don't get to hear it until everybody else does? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wait for it. Wednesday morning, 6 a.m.
No playwright up in the room. The living playwright. No living playwrights in the room. Got it. So I'm wondering, that reach that you're talking about, like, that has to be like, that's one of the things that I'm most inspired by and happy about, is just like our work has this reach now. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. Are there any plans to extend the series, or is there any, you know, to extend the reach of the series? Because it seems like this is a hot happening idea, folks.
Definitely. So we had something that came down the pipeline. What was it, last week and this week? Laura, with one of the other playwrights, there's some interest from, this public library in San Antonio?
Yeah, the San Antonio Library wants to rebroadcast one of the episodes, Nicole Cortegato's Crawl for All, for Disability Awareness Month. So they reached out to her and they said, hey, can we stream this? So it's gaining some reach. Our writers are getting out there. Their voices are also getting heard by more audiences, which is great.
I mean, it's really exciting to see. I mean, I think that was, and Laura, you can confirm or deny, for me, that was one of the most exciting things about the project. It's this stuff that Maggie was talking about. It's like, this stuff lives on, and it has this reach. Kathy Center, who wrote Bridge and the Bats, set up an IMDb page for everybody involved in the project. So students are getting professional credits, right? They're getting something to add to their resume that's going to help push their careers forward. And that is super exciting. So yeah, we're gonna keep going. We've got season 2 coming up in the spring.
Sweet. Yeah, it seems like a really good way to really deal with a lot of accessibility issues, or even just like casting issues around body type and image. Like, there's a lot of freedom for folks, even being able to work with artists beyond just Austin, or maybe artists that, you know, I mean, we have a, you know, artists with disabilities community that, like, I just, the reach, the work that we're able to do, that is in the inclusiveness of it, just seems to be another wonderful treat. I'd be trying to find them 2020 silver linings. And so this definitely feels like
it's like the time commitment for actors, right? Mm-hmm. Which is can be a huge burden. If you can't afford to go to be in a show that rehearses for 4 weeks and then runs for another 4 weeks, that means you can't work evenings for 8 weeks. How are you gonna pay your rent? But with this little project, I mean, I meet with actors to cast and do callbacks, and then I think after the first episode, right, Carlo, we figured out the technical kinks. And now it's, okay, give me an hour on Saturday, and we'll do 3 or 4 takes. We'll do some punch-ins, and then give it to the wizard, he's going to work his magic. And so the time commitment for participants is significantly lower. But I think you still get the punch of being in a show and being in production, you get the credits, that sort of thing. Not to mention, I mean, I don't know what the time commitment is for the playwrights, but it's probably more than an hour on a Saturday.
Not to mention, you just made yourself more accessible to other jobs, like, even cartoons or something like that, so there you go.
Yeah, we had, since the theaters are closed, I think for, a lot of us, just how are we going to continue to do the work? How are we going to, continue to get all of our stories, out there? And that's so important. So Marcus, you had said something that I want to go back to. So what are some hints or some clues or something about a season 2? Is that a thing? Do we really not know?
I don't know. I don't even know. You have to ask Laura about that.
Okay.
Can I share the concept that my new writer's room selected last night, or are we keeping it a secret? Shrug.
Yeah, let's keep the concept secret.
Okay, hold on. That way we'll do a big tea reveal later. There'll be a tea party, and it'll all come out. So my last question, and I want to thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Laura. What was that? A hint? What?
I was just going to say, I can tell you they have selected a concept. I do currently have audio dramatists who are now in the stage of writing episodes under the selected umbrella concept that won last night's vote. So we will have new episodes for production soon.
Oh, that is wonderful to hear for all of the people. I'm sure, Carlos, there, how technology, especially for, some of our younger folks, that's not disrespect. Yeah, it's like, I can say that, right? But before the young people, y'all do, like, technology is such a in-hand thing for a lot of younger performers. So I'm really excited that this opportunity, especially, I'm thinking of for Black and brown males that want to somehow get into, the theater and this audio DJ-ship that I'm going to refer to it as, just seems like something that would garner a lot of interest from a lot of young folks that maybe traditionally don't see a way into this world. So, I'm grateful that you're here. And thank you all for taking some time out to talk to me. I'm going to end us with this one last question. And maybe when you answer, you call on somebody who hasn't answered, and then that's how we'll get through that thing. But because I like the takeaways, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned during this process on season 1? The biggest lesson. And it doesn't have to do with like why you were in the room. Like, it doesn't have to be about playwriting necessarily, because what you learned over, it may be unrelated and a big lesson for some of us. So lay it on.
For me, I think it's relearning a lesson about performance and performing arts, is that you have to lean on other people. This is an infinitely collaborative art form, and that's not a bad thing. That's a fantastic thing. And so if we can continue to embrace that and maybe even spread that to the rest of our lives, whether it's grocery shopping or voting or anything else, this idea that we need one another to make things work, I think, has just been reaffirmed. What do you think, Laura?
I think what I am taking away from this is just the amazing adaptability and resiliency of our writers. That we're in the middle of an incredibly stressful time, and yet all these writers still take this completely new form and they jump in, they dive in, they create something that has never been created before, something unique and original and new, and diving into this collaborative process like Marcus is saying. And I just think I have been inspired, which is a tough thing to do in 2020, to find those moments of joy, those silver linings you were talking about, Florinda. I think being able to guide writers through this is a silver lining for me. I'm going to toss it to Pablo.
Biggest lesson. I think I really liked that. That despite there being limitations on on what we can do. There always is an in. There's always like a way to go around it, and I think that's encouraging. I think on a more personal level, seeing work that I've made go through like several stages and not just be like, oh, I wrote a rough draft or something, move on to the next thing. Seeing those like different levels of completion and having it to a point where it gets produced was really rewarding for me, and I think that's something worth keeping in mind for future things that I make.
And I think that
Yes,
so I started talking anyway. For me, I think it just reaffirms the importance and benefits of being with a group of writers and having a really good instructor. You know, writing is such a solitary activity, and left to my own devices without structures and deadlines and goals to aim for, I will, you know, clean the kitchen for 12 hours a day and do anything but. So there's been huge benefit, and I will, you know, take every class that Laura offers. There is huge benefit to being with a group of other writers of different ages and backgrounds and experiences, because we all learn from each other's work, and it keeps us accountable. And for me, that's huge, and that's my great distraction. My great pandemic distraction is being able to do more writing, more playwriting.
For myself, I just learned to appreciate technology more, even when it takes going back to something that we may had a form of. So now, I mean, I listen to talk radio. I listened to some types of radio drama before, but just being able to see it now and seeing actors flow and being in the room with them, it was incredible and it was inspiring. And to watch some writing a script come to life. You can't take that away. So I'm happy. So that's it.
Good. Yeah, thank you all for that. I think that y'all all, that's all the magic that the people need to hear. Like, we have what we need to get through this moment. And it's making the world kind of shrink, and maybe the world needs to shrink a little bit for us to figure out how we can take care of one another. And so I love that this response, this artistic response to this moment, has come to such a beautiful fruition. So thank you all for sharing your time with us today, and your time and talents with us in the world. We need them. Thank you, Marcus, for letting me sit in today. And thank you all for joining us.